Many of us have been screaming at the top of our lungs that Donald Trump is a wannabe authoritarian with very fascistic tendencies, and it seems that with each passing day, he continues to prove us right. But first, if you want to support independent progressive media and help me make it to 1,000 subscribers, please do remember to hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to make it to 1,000 before the end of the year, and I would very much appreciate your support. Now, Donald Trump has always been a fairly hostile figure as far as suing this company or that company, whether it be for defamation or otherwise. But it was really during his 2024 campaign that he started issuing a ton of different threats against a ton of different people. And now it seems that he's actually starting to follow through on some of those threats. And it was only yesterday during a press conference where Donald Trump was actually threatening Ann Selzer and her organization because he didn't like the polling that she put out before the election. And for those of you that missed that, here is what Donald Trump was saying yesterday.
I want to expand on the defamation lawsuits. Could you see moving that to other people with individual platforms, social media influencers, people that...
Or newspapers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I do. I think you have to do it because they're very dishonest. I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper, which had a very, very good pollster who got me right all the time. And then just before the election, she said I was going to lose by 3 or 4 points.
So not only is he talking about opening up these defamation laws to make it easier to sue somebody for defamation, even like social media influencers and things like that, but he's making specific threats against Ann Selzer and the Des Moines Register because he didn't like the polling that she put out. How childish can you be? Donald Trump won the 2024 election, but that wasn't good enough. He still wants to punish his enemies. This is why we call him fascistic, because we are now learning that he actually is following through with this threat and is suing Ann Selzer and her organization. And he's not using a standard defamation suit. Instead, he's using this fringe legal theory that has to do with consumer fraud. Let's go ahead and learn a little bit about that here, and then we will discuss.
No, unlike a lot of the lawsuits Trump has filed in the past, usually unsuccessfully against news outlets, this is not a defamation suit. This is a case in Iowa that relies on a pretty dramatic or aggressive interpretation of the Iowa Consumer Fraud Act. That's a law that prohibits deception when advertising or selling merchandise. So you can imagine Trump's legal team here looking for a law in Iowa they can use to sue Ann Selzer and the Des Moines Register and its parent company, Gannett. And they've landed on this consumer fraud protection law. They're basically arguing that the poll was an example of fraud, that it was, quote, election interfering fiction.
So he is using some strange consumer fraud law to go after a small newspaper because he didn't like the polling that they were reporting on before the election. Could it be any more fascistic? Could it be any more authoritarian? I mean, how big of a child do you have to be when even when you win, do you still go and try to punish people that you perceive as your enemies? Not to mention, he's supposed to be the free speech guy, right? That's what the MAGA movement has been telling us. But he's going to go after a pollster because he didn't like the results, and he's somehow twisting it up in his pea brain that this was somehow election interference. I mean, if we take a look at the actual law, it is for consumer protections. It doesn't have to do with anything about elections. It doesn't have to do with any of that. This is talking about misleading people to get them to purchase something. Let's go ahead and read it real quick. A person shall not engage in a practice or act that person knows or reasonably should know is an unfair practice, deception, fraud, false pretense, or false promise, or the misrepresentation, concealment, suppression, or omission of a material fact with the intent that others rely upon the unfair practice, deception, fraud, false pretense, false promise, misrepresentation, concealment, suppression, or omission in connection with the advertisement, sale, or lease of consumer merchandise, or the solicitation of contributions for a charitable purpose. So this has absolutely nothing to do with defaming Trump. It has absolutely nothing to do with interfering in an election. He is using this fringe legal theory as a way to bully somebody that he doesn't like. This is a tried and true method of authoritarians. This is how they use the law, they abuse the law to try to silence their dissenters. Let's listen to Brian Stelter explain kind of how some of that works in other authoritarian regimes.
You talk about how sometimes Trump does this to cause pain. There may be an even bigger strategy here, which Trump frankly alluded to at this news conference as he heads into this new administration.
Yes, talking about straightening out the press. That's a euphemism for trying to tone down any and all negative or critical coverage. And we know that he spent his first term in office deriding so-called fake news, trying to label real news as fake. Now he's taking actions, not just using his words, but taking actions. And I don't think it's a coincidence that he was able to prevail against ABC with that shocking $15 million settlement on Saturday. And then on Monday, he has his legal team file this suit in Iowa.
So he's just abusing the law all over the place. We just learned, obviously, just a day or two ago that he settled with ABC and they're going to be paying him $15 million because they didn't want the headache of going through court and discovery. And now he is suing Ann Selzer in the Des Moines Register using this fringe theory under consumer protection law just to go after people he doesn't like. This is a tried and true method of authoritarians. They do not like anybody that speaks out against them. They do not like anybody that reports on information that could make them possibly look bad. They just don't want any of it. They want to silence and punish these people. And that is what we are in for in this second Trump term. He seems to be more emboldened now than ever before. He has this quote-unquote mandate he keeps on referencing, and now it seems like he is continuing to overplay his hand, not only with the crazy, insane picks for his cabinet, but now he is doing stuff like this that may have been laughed out of court just a few years ago. I find it absolutely despicable that we have an incoming president that is trying to target people he perceives as his enemies because he has such a fragile ego. He is a tiny, tiny man. And let's not forget, he won this election and he is still trying to inflict pain on people. Ann Selzer retired from polling after she got this so wrong. And in what world does it make sense that her poll would lead to more voter turnout for Democrats? It seems to me that that would be more actually motivating for Republicans to get off the couch and vote because Kamala Harris was pulling ahead. So even in Donald Trump's twisted worldview, it just doesn't even make any sense. He is just doing this to bully people that he doesn't like. And he now feels like an all-powerful God that can do whatever he wants. And now we don't have anybody, any Republican, that are going to stand up against this blatant abuse of power and our legal system. And he's just going to skate through this second administration while targeting his enemies. I mean, just listen to what Ann Selzer had to say after the election, when it turned out her polling was just really, really off.
I'm not here to break any news. If you're hoping that I had landed on exactly why things went wrong, I have not. It does sort of awaken me in the middle of the night, and I think, well, maybe I should check this. This is something that would be very odd if it were to happen, but we've explored everything. The Des Moines Register, in an unprecedented move for transparency, has put online our crosstabs, our weighting system, and my analysis, and that I've not needed to update because it was pretty complete. We don't know. Do I wish I knew? Yes, I wish I knew.
So it does not seem at all like there was any malicious intent on the part of Ann Selzer or the Des Moines Register. After they figured out that it was so wrong, they even published all of the relevant material that went into making that poll. And so it's just a damn shame that we have the person who is going to be the most powerful person in all of the world going after people like Ann Selzer. Somebody who has been a reputable pollster for quite some time now. Somebody that Trump actually pointed to as a reputable pollster. And she gets one wrong, and now, what? The world comes crashing down on her because Donald Trump has a fragile ego? This is absolutely pathetic stuff, and we have to call it out every step of the way. This is the making of an authoritarian leader. This is what they do. We have to call it out. We have to push back against this stuff. And these news agencies like ABC need to start pushing back against this blatant abuse of our legal system and the power that resides in Donald Trump. I'll leave it there for now. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. Like I said, I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I would very much appreciate your support. If you want to see just how big of a train wreck that Mar-a-Lago press conference was, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.